Incorporated. They manufacture aluminum vinyl sliding windows. Great project with them. Tony was actively involved with a lot of the work. Brent actually got a lot of compliments with them with how both Brent and Tony helped names them going through the construction and building process. They're very happy with that whole process. New Holland Transport, the refrigerated truck and cold storage, another success story in the township right now. And basically hiring at this point and growing and taking a site that was a brownfield and redeveloping. That's the WH. Then you had your UGI Corporate Center. And you're going to have immediately 270 employees who move into the township this winter. I say this winter because we talked to UGI and they're under the impression they'll move in before end of December. The contractor's time in February. So there's going to be, we're just using winter right now as the range that they will be coming in at. But those are 270 highly paid employees that are moving into the township. Eventually that number can get up to 330 to 350 employees in that building. Then you see right next door to it, you see the True by Hilton or True Denver Hotel that is currently under construction and will be opening sometime in summer 2019 for business. So we're upgrading the hotel stock in the township. Then we have Garden Spot Craven and Lyman, who other than doing a building shift after working with their contractor to reduce overall building costs, at this point they have their HOP. Once that building shift is done, they're breaking ground. So more than likely they will be breaking ground in February. So we'll have some plan approvals coming to wrap that up, probably in December, and then February ground's going to break. Members First, the corner track where many times McDonald's and others have tried moving in. Well, a bank can move in at that location. But did that location out in the past was that the backed up traffic, the congestion along Denver Road was a turnoff to McDonald's. Basically, McDonald's is all about easy in, easy out. When you can't get easy in, easy out, you don't have a McDonald's. A bank has significantly less traffic and actually can operate very well at that corner, even with the existing traffic conditions and traffic problems are up there. So it is a perfect fit for that location, and we anticipate that they will be breaking ground in 2019. So that is another success story on the business side. Talk about new residential development. So phase 3 from Heatherwoods purchased by Burke's Homes. They've been going gangbuster with building permits and moving projects. They're already talking about phase 4 and phase 5 starting in 2019. So you're going to see final plans. They're moving so quickly that they are going to merge those two phases together at this point. They're not doing them separate phases. So with we're going to see significant movement at Heatherwoods. Carriage Hill, phase 3, we know Landmark's reputation, but how fast they move Stony Point. I have no doubt that they will do the same thing in Carriage Hill. So they just purchased that by auction, what, Tony, about a month ago?
3 weeks, yeah.
You know, so they purchased it by auction at this point. They will obviously be submitting plans. I anticipate that we'll probably see late in 2019, then breaking ground to start Carriage Hill phase 3. Wabash Landing phase 1, that work is already started. We will start seeing significant building permits coming. Phase 2 work, because of the success of phase 1, will already start design and permitting in 2019.
Phase 1 has the addresses already in hand. They're anticipating foundation work if they don't get any in this year. Springtime.
Yeah, they're moving that quick.
They're moving that quick, yes.
And I've never seen a development in this township produce as much stone as they're currently producing and as much plastic.
Another quarry.
Right, it's another quarry. Usually most of our developments, we have the really bad soils. In their case, they have the soils that got us blessed. So there's a lot of rock out there, and you stand at Stevens Fire Hall and you look at it, you can see mountains of stone right now. To the point that I think they might be giving Martin Limestone a little competition with their board. So I'm excited about the residential development. We have 3 developers that are fully funded. They're pricing the houses right in this township, and they are all going gangbusters at this point. The township's never had that before simultaneously over the last 15 years. Big part of that, again, in the past was driven by the water moratorium, which did hit both Heatherwoods and Carriage Hill. So that with that now no longer being an issue, we have the developments that are going, basically taking off. Item number 19, and the police chief can jump in at any time, but we hired 2 new police officers in 2019. So after a period of time where there was no hires with the loss of municipalities, we're finally to the point again where some of our officers are retiring and we are hiring. And that's important with the life cycle. It's also important for the long-term cost control, because we do need some youth in. Bringing youth in, having people retire, gets our average age of our police department down, and that's good for the long-term projections of the police department financially. Each police car is equipped with stop sticks, and that was partially paid for by a generous business donation by Dentec. So we have business leaders stepping up. They recognize that our code blue is an important part of our township, and they're stepping up and making donations. Same thing goes with another donation that we had by a citizen that got us a thermal imaging scope and 25 tourniquets, again, for the police department. Again, people evaluating the men and women in blue in this township. Another success story with the police department is we're obviously concerned about cost, and our police are aggressively going after grant monies to cover some of the operational costs. So in this case, getting traffic grants to cover traffic enforcement, which you've seen many of the emails that we get with the residents complaining about speeding. Well, there were 600 vehicle stops that were paid for by grant monies instead of coming out of the general fund budget. And that's important to us controlling the long-term cost of our police budget, and that's something that I'm sure Chief Kefley will continue to actively pursue.
Yeah, I think those grants are going to continue. It kind of goes on a as-used basis. So because we utilized them and did very well with them, they will continue.
You have someone there now focusing on those grants also, right?
Well, yes, Sergeant Trojan is the one that deals with that, and that's through the one agency through the state that gets, it all depends on numbers, it's crash data and all those type of things, but I don't see that going away anytime soon from what I'm being told.
And then the last item is we also have very good officers in our department. So Officer Kreischer received the Lancaster County DUI Top Gun and the State DUI Top Gun. I don't know, Chief, you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, we're going to be attending the banquet. I think it's November 8th. He was recognized by the state, and one of the things that he gets as a donation from them is a preliminary breath test device, or PBT. I think it's valued at $1,100. So it'll be utilized throughout the department, not just by Officer Kreischer, but it'll also help the 2 that we have in the department, 2 PBTs, be allowed to go to the other officers on patrol, so we'll not have 3.
So a lot of positive accomplishments in 2018. East Cocalico Township by the state is open for business and moving forward. I had to do a little plug since I happen to know somebody who's going to be in the audience that you might like. The final plug here, this is the new Stevens Fire Company helipad. The Stevens Fire Company invites you to attend a community dedication of the new helipad and watch the landing of a Lifeline helicopter on Saturday, November 10th at 11 a.m. at 91 Stevens Road, Stevens, Pennsylvania. For more information, just go to Facebook and put in Stevens Fire Company. Did I miss anything, Joe?
I think you got it covered.
Okay.
Yeah, we're the first township, municipality in the county that actually has a helipad at one of our fire departments, correct?
Correct. There's 3 in the state that are owned by fire. We're the 3rd in the state to be owned by a fire department.
So we're 3rd in the state, but we're first state county.
And then other ones are for the county-wide for their own area to land, they're up in the mountains.
So we have the ability, obviously, to get people to hospitals quickly from this township, which is a good thing.
That's good.
For all of us that value our health, we're all being. The other thing is, that's also another example, is these little periphery things, but they all tie into the big picture. This is obviously on the EMS side of things. It happens to be helicopters, but it's an EMS lifeline type of thing. But we also have Black Swan moving into the township. Again, it's going to be helping us with our, as a township and our appearance, and basically elevating the township for the next decade with services that we can provide. Healthcare is important to people, so So having something in close proximity like this is a definite plus. Having the ability to get trash out of this township, it had people in mind personally with like the eligibility waste area right now. Having like Swama in here, having them having a full recycling area, having a place for residents to legally dump trash very easily instead of having to illegally dump trash in other locations of the township will improve the overall appearance of the township. It will also help with cost containment in this township. Businesses as well as our local trash haulers will now have a much more convenient location to deposit their trash instead of driving all the way down to Harrisburg Pike transfer station. So from a business perspective, having that in our township is a very positive thing, not to mention the additional revenue it will someday provide the township when we get tipping fees for every truck that deposits trash at that location. So that's definitely a big positive.
This is an ideal location for it too.
And a very good location.
Right across from Supervisor.
So now I'd like to go into the budget slide. So what we have here is, we're now going to get into the meat of the budget discussions. And what this is first going to provide is a summary of some of the things that are going to actually be in the general fund budget, and an explanation for both costs and revenue that has occurred in this township and what's in the proposed 2019 budget. The first item you see here is basically we have a revenue comparison that's looking at 2018 budget, 2017 actuals, and the 2019 budget. First item you have here is real property taxes. You can see here that what will be proposed in 2019's budget and what you have before you in the budget that I'm requesting that you would advertise is a 6.5% property tax that represents $105,000. You can see there that red is a reflection of that increased revenue from a property tax perspective. You can see the 2017 numbers, and then the 2018 numbers are slightly higher. That represents a 2.5% property tax that occurred last year. Real estate transfer taxes are shown as flat, as probably conservative at this point, assuming that we do see some things booming with Florida, because Florida does not exempt properties from real estate transfer taxes. So if some properties start selling, we will actually see that number go up. But to be fiscally conservative right now, we're basically tracking and trending what we have seen in past years, over the last couple of years. We will obviously adjust 2020's budget if it turns out to be a big success at this point, which is what I anticipate will happen. Earned income tax. The earned income tax is lower. We talked about this. We talked about the problems at the last meeting, at the workshop meeting, that for whatever reason, the county's projected budget that they give us, because they give us the budget year, what we're supposed to put in the budget every year, was off by anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 this year. So when they came back with next year's projections, they put us back to 2017 projections. So when you see that dot on there, you see 2017 and 2019 relatively matching one another, and lower than the 2018 projections. As I talked about in the workshop meeting, more than likely, we will, after April of next year, when tax reconciliation occurs, we might see a corrective check being sent to us from the county, from the Tax Collection Bureau. Because what it is probably one or two employers, or one or two payroll providers, or one or two of the other tax collectors, Berkshire, or one of the other ones, made a mistake coding something. And when all the taxes come in on tax day and then they get reconciled, usually that's when those mistakes were caught. So the Tax Collection Bureau did assure us, this didn't impact just us, it was the whole Cocalico region, school district region, and the whole Elizabethtown school district region that both had the same problem. So we're not alone in this, but they will be in particular focusing on the two school districts and their municipalities with a reconciliation. So does this impact the school district just like it's impacting us? Local service tax is always relatively flat. We will see a small uptick next year thanks to UGI and some of the business moving in, but really it doesn't move much, even with new employers coming in. Permits and franchise fees are relatively flat, although that might be conservative too, depending on what comes in at this point. Fines and public safety is a relatively flat number. Interest had a small uptick with us putting monies in the money market accounts that we did. That will net about roughly, off the top of my head, about $50,000 more revenue for the township among all funds. State grants are, at this point, relatively flat. That represents, in particular, the pension contribution we get from the state. So that's where that state grant number is. State share revenue, that's relatively flat. SRO funding, right now you see that's the next item that's of a major revenue generator for us. That's assuming that all 4 municipalities participate. School district has definitely indicated they're in. Obviously, 3 municipalities have indicated they're in, and we're waiting on the 4th one to respond. So you can see that that does reflect an uptick at this point in shared payments. Zoning fees and permit fees, we are showing as relatively flat. And then on the DEP MS4 side, we are showing a stormwater fee, and we'll explain that a little bit more. But you can see that there is a rather big gradient there at this point.
Yeah, that's the largest jump of any increase in any of those items.
So I'm not having a little technical knowledge here. Now, let me just close it out.
Modern technology.
Okay, there we go. Now it's working. Okay, this next one shows budget revenue. And the discussion items on this item right now is, you can see that of the major items, the property tax and earning tax are our main sources of revenue, and they're relatively the same number. What will happen over the next couple of years is, due to us, especially if we keep building at a clip of 50+ houses a year, the earned income tax will at some point overtake the property tax as the main revenue source for the township, and that's actually a healthy thing. That's something that we want to occur. We want the earned income tax to be the main tax source for the township. It's also much more recession-proof and inflation-proof, because obviously people's salaries go up, the income tax naturally inflates. We don't have the issues that we have with the property tax at this point. What is important about this, and the education that goes along with this, is that we talked about LRTA, we talked about its positive impacts, and you have to look at it from 2 different perspectives. In a couple of past meetings, I did talk about a study a number of years ago that the Hempfield School District and the 4 Hempfield municipalities did. Basically, it was a cost of services study. And what that did was look at revenue and the cost of providing services. So there's a couple of things to understand when we look at development in this township, and why I would really emphasize we have to have a balanced development in this township. The point to emphasize is that when you look at it from the macro perspective, just taxes in general, you want a lot of commercial and industrial development, because they don't generate students. So look at that big picture, the school district's perspective, they're the biggest creator of property taxes. Industrial and commercial development is nothing but a big winner for the school district. However, when you look at it from a municipal perspective, That is not the same answer. From a municipal perspective, the best development is residential. So while overall, from the big global picture of controlling tax, overall property taxes, county, state, local, commercial, industrial are the way to go. From a municipal perspective, residential is the best tax source for the municipal coffers. The reason is pretty simple. A residential property pays property tax and earned income tax. A commercial or industrial property pays property tax and LST. If you remember on the slide, LST does not amount to much for the township. But even from a property tax perspective, a local property tax perspective, an example would be a 10-acre housing development. You put 40 units on a 10-acre housing development. You assume that the houses go for an assessed value after they're built of $250,000 a parcel. That's $10 million of assessed value on 10 acres. Show me a commercial tract of 10 acres that is bringing us $10 million of assessed value. You're not going to see it. Combine that with the earned income tax, the residential tax generates a lot more revenue on the municipal perspective than the commercial and industrial. That's why I'm saying we have to have balanced development. For the good of the school district, we need to grow industrial and commercial. But it is not a true statement to say that those actually help us. They help the school district. What helps us is residential development, which actually hurts the school district. So we have to have a balance at this point. So we talked about the cost of services. The thing that came out of that cost of services was because of the property tax and earned income tax, the cost of providing policing, paving roads and stuff like that in the residential development are more than offset by the taxes that come in. They basically subsidize the budget of the township. When you look at the cost of industrial development for providing services versus the tax revenue come in, the taxes that come in do not cover the cost of that business doing business in the township. Example would that be, a perfect example is Denver Road. It's a heavily industrial, commercial roadway. We just dropped a couple $100,000. We do not collect an equivalent property tax for how much work it costs just to maintain that road and that bridge that we've already done that work on. So that would be a perfect example of industrial and commercial costs versus residential costs. So that's one of the things, a couple things to take out is a philosophical concept to present to the public, because everybody views commercial and industrial as the magic bullets at this point for controlling taxes. And in the big picture, it is definitely a very important tool in the toolbox. But we also need residential development. The second part to take away from all that is going back to Benderson. What is the last thing that's keeping Benderson from comfortably moving forward? And Tony and I both know what the answer is. It is foot traffic. The businesses need to be able to see foot traffic. That is what Benderson's struggling to show to the CVS's, the Wawas, the Sheets, to the McDonald's, the entities that want to essentially move in their development, is they could get adequate foot traffic in there for them to have successful businesses. The way we generate foot traffic is having 50 building permits a year occurring with residential development. It complements our businesses that want to grow, especially businesses in the retail sector. So you cannot have one without the other at this point. So those businesses are going to be looking at Tony's building permits, and they're going to see a doubling, and they're going to see all these new land development projects kicking in, and all that helps attract them.
And they have. Over the last 2 years, we've been in close contact with the Benderson people, and I've been constantly updating, hey, do you know that Wabash Landing is breaking ground? Do you know that, all these other developments, Carriage Hill was purchased, Landmark's finishing up, Morgan Charter's finishing up. There's a lot of building going on. So they've been aware. They've been aware. They can't say that they don't know what's going on. Just communication.
So it's balanced development is important for the town. I mean, we cannot look down on residential development. It helps our financial coffers and it helps incubate future business development in the township. So that was the kind of one of the learning points to take from that slide. So here's a year-over-year expense comparison. The first item of major note, you see MMO increases between 2017 and 18. We discussed the big jump, that was the big killer in last year's budget. Fortuitously, this year was a much smaller thing due to market growth, where it was a very tiny increase versus what we had experienced in 2018. It was almost flat. Obviously, the changes that we made long-term with our pension provider could be an answer there, but short-term, that causes a problem with our budget. So that is one of our cost drivers, because that jump in 2017, as we looked at before, the property tax not really growing, does cause issues and concerns. Next item is an EMS placeholder. We know Reamstown has very clearly stated that by the end of the year, financially, they cannot stay open with EMS. We have a placeholder of money in there. We know something needs to be done, whether it is for the short-term shoring up Reamstown EMS, reaching out, hearing what Wellspan wants to talk to us about on Monday, about potential regional EMS, reaching out to another EMS provider, or possibly combining with Reamstown to go regional themselves and do an in-house regional, or having another EMS provider itself just come into the township. Any one of those are going to represent a cost. They are completely unknown at this point. The only thing that is well known is we are mandated to provide a BLS service in this township, and we have to have somebody providing it. So that is something that, as a duty, the township cannot overlook. So money has been set aside for that. It is rather pricey, but money's been set aside for that portion. Next item, then you see a somewhat significant uptick, and this has been was talked about in the workshop and will be talked about when we do the highway fund discussion. You see an uptick in the highway and roads in the general fund. That represents fog sealing and some of the other things that we're doing that are not liquid fuel eligible, but are in the budget to extend the life of our roadways. As we're going to talk about later in liquid fuel fund, it's absolutely critical that we put more monies into our residential streets at this point and basically address them now while it's still a maintenance issue and not a rehabilitation or a replacement issue. Then you see the next big uptick, and this is our DEP MS4, as I like to call it, stormwater mandated costs. Between 2017 and 2019, our costs went up 825%. As I talked about exponential costs, there is exponential cost.
Yeah, that percentage tells the whole story.
So
Next year's no better.
Right. Take that number that we paid in 2017, you multiply it by 8.25, that's how much our costs have increased from 2017 to 2019. That is a huge, unsustainable number. And again, we talked about that will be the cost that we're going to be seeing for the next 5 years, and then I anticipate a doubling, at minimum of a doubling of that cost for the next 5-year permit cycle. As well as my crystal ball can look at things right now. Swimming pool is flat, parks, libraries, community is flat, debt and financing is flat, insurances are flat. We are going to talk about this in the next moment about permanent cost reductions, but there's some things that the township has done, and the other aspect which came out of the workshop that we have done to permanently reduce costs. And because of that permanent reduction, our overall non-uniform employee benefit cost has gone down 8%, even though our insurances, our health insurances went up 4.5%. Right here you have a pie chart that shows budgeted expenses. First thing to take out, and the most important thing to take out, is the police represent half of this municipality's budgeted expenses. Our police department's expenses, as half of a municipal budget, is on line with most of the other municipalities in this county, who will also show the exact same thing on their slides, that the police department is half of the overall municipal budget. They will also show, looking historically, that pie, as I like to say, is slowly creeping up. But that is a common issue with every single municipality. Our department is no better or no worse in terms of what the overall budget is than any of the other municipalities that have a police department in Lancaster County. So we are actually on par with other municipalities when it comes to this overall police costs. And here's the police budget, and I'll turn that over to the chief if you have anything you would like to color commentate, but the takeaway for that is that labor, benefits, and MMO are over 75% of the cost of having a police department.
I attempted to keep the budget relatively the same. I think I figured it out. At this point, it's approximately 2.19% increase from last year. There were a lot of items that stayed the same. Several items were taken out that were no longer necessary. One example would be cloud storage for computers, since we're redoing a number of things. A few areas where we went up, the MVR, or mobile video recorders, they are getting old. So that budget item increased from 2,000 to 5,000. That's something that's significant in what we do every day. It helps in court, and it helps actually if somebody makes a false claim against an officer or otherwise. There's a new item in there called Leads Online. It's $2,150. Basically what that is it's used very much by our detective, and he can monitor the local pawn shops. And in fact, if you sell something at a video store where you turn a video game and get money for it, and you're from the Denver area or have certain addresses, he will get notification that this was sold. I know this for a fact because my son's name came up when he sold a video game down in Maryland. So it's that technical and that good, and we can tell when somebody is selling something that may match stolen items from burglaries or other things. So it was, I think, a very good purchase for this year and for the following years. But again, I tried to keep everything as much the same as possible. Again, the MMO was added into our budget, again, which is where it should be. And a number of things went down or were removed. So we tried to tighten our belts because we knew it was a significant time to do that and move forward.
And all of his budget adjustments were already incorporated by the time of the workshop meeting. So that was not part of the fix that you had instructed me as a manager to develop in this budget. Chief had already done his homework and sharpened his pencil at that point.
So Chief, you said overall your budget has only gone up 2.19%.
That's the last calculation I made. I know it's in the 2% realm.
So what we have here is fire, EMS, and ambulance budget. For the most part, everything that you see there is a reflection of the previous year's budget, including the $96,000 that the township did not pay to Greenstown EMS this year. But that money is flagged right now due to the unknowns of what it's going to do with the anticipated closure of Greenstown EMS at the end of the year. And whatever the fix is going to look like at this point. And we'll have a little bit more of an idea after Monday's meeting with Wellspan. Next up, you have medical and health insurance benefits. I'm going to go into details in a moment about why this dropped. But the biggest thing in this slide to take out is in 2018, our health care costs for our non-uniform side was $316,200. 2019, even with the 4.4% increase in our PTO, we are looking at a $270,840 increase. So it is actually a decrease in 2019 versus 2018 healthcare costs, and is one of the things that we're driving, helping out with our overall budget situation. This is the MS4 numbers to give a picture of what an 825% increase in expenses look like. You have the MS4 costs, as well as the need to bring on a part-time MS4 technician with a technical degree, either our biology or an engineering technician degree would fall under Tony, so that's his responsibility to cover the notice of violations and Tony and I have gone through a number of stormwater training classes that's making our heads spin with all the new requirements that are being imposed on us and all the new reporting requirements that are being imposed on us and all the project requirements that are being imposed on us. So that number you can see here, typically from this point forward, we're going to be looking at roughly a number of $150,000 a year to operate an MS4 program, when in previous years we were spending $17,000 to $18,000. We're looking at the need of having a part-time employee spending at least 25 hours a week is what we anticipate, just to meet the minimum reporting requirements that are going to be required of us for next year, and to document everything that needs to occur. We are looking at projects that need to occur. This number is based on us getting a $380,000 Clean and Green grant to cover our Reevestown Park project. Should we fail to get that grant, which was supposed to be announced yesterday, and has not been announced by DEP yet, then we will be looking at about another $100,000 a year of additional expenses. So this is based off the premise right now that we actually get notification in the next week or two that we have been awarded the grant. If we have not, then I will be coming back to the board with a new MS4 stormwater number for the next 5 years. Now, with the board taking action tonight to advertise it, this is the one thing changed in that advertisement that could force a re-advertisement of the budget. So if it comes back that we do not get the grant, and that stormwater fee needs to change, since it will change by a number of greater than 25%, there will be a re-advertisement of the budget at that point, once we know that. Pretty much anything else in the budget would not cause a re-advertisement at this point. So how are we closing the projected shortfall? And what was presented in the budget workshop? In the budget workshop, the budget shortfall was proposed in the budget during our workshop meeting on October 15th. At the workshop meeting, options were presented to close the budget shortfall. And what the instructions I were given was to combine permanent cuts, cost recovery fee, which we call stormwater fee, property tax increase. Total shortfall presented at the workshop was estimated to be at that time $331,300 after the transfer of unencumbered 2018 funds. What is proposed in the budget that you have before you today is proposed permanent cost cuts by eliminating 2 full-time positions in the township and restructuring the township workload. That includes the hiring of part-timers in the township. Even with the hiring of part-timers in the township, the projected savings would be $129,000. That reflects taking one of my front office staff that's in a full-time position and making that part-time position, adding the part-time MS4 technician to Tony, as well as going from a road crew of 5 to a road crew of 4. All the staff are aware of these changes, and all the staff know which positions have been eliminated. Second proposed change is a proposed establishing of a new Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection MS4 stormwater fee. Call it like it is, it's caused by them, so we're going to call it their fee. We cover new unfunded costs that are mandated by DEP onto the township to perform DEP mandated stormwater projects over the next 5 years and to cover the increased MS4 compliant costs. The projected DEP fee is $150,000 a year. The third major item to close the budget shortfall is a proposed property tax of 6.5%, generating $105,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to review some of the budget items right now. The major changes to the general fund will be discussed. However, our last discussion of the general fund took over 3 hours, and I do not intend to spend the next 3 hours with my monotone voice right now, putting everybody to sleep talking about the general fund. If somebody wants to see the general fund discussion, you can go on YouTube, Google YouTube East Cocalico Township Budget 2018, and you can watch the entire 3-hour discussion that went over line by line of every item in the general fund. The biggest changes, and I have to flip to my form right now, my cheat sheet, is looking at the bottom line at this point. With the changes that were just discussed in the previous sheet, which have been incorporated in the general fund budget, we are looking at approximately, as I'm looking down here and just running off the numbers, after all the changes are done, where before we were showing a $388,000 shortfall, we are showing a projected positive $42,073 in the budget after all of these changes have been incorporated. Now, the saying might be, well, why don't we reduce the property tax by a little bit? Well, the response is going to be, we have the expenses are coming again next year and they're going to inflate. So at our next meeting or the meeting after, it's going to depend on how long it takes, we will actually present a 4-year projection that will project the 2019 budget out. And we'll look at that. But right now, my recommendation is to stick with the plan that we proposed with the cost reductions, the stormwater fee, and the 6.5% $105,000 property tax. And that will right now, per budget, will give us a positive $42,073 instead of a shortfall that we were showing. What is being proposed, proposes no additions to capital reserve, like we had done last year to fill in the budget, and basically puts us on a firm footing going forward, especially considering that the permanent cost reductions are permanent. So we will get benefits from those reductions year to year at this point. Basically, a majority of the other things in this general fund have not changed. There was a minor tweaking of the grant monies that we got for recycling to reflect that we had gotten a grant money of $220,000, so that number was bumped up to $200,000. Other than that, pretty much everything stays the way it was, other than the cost adjustments by eliminating the 2 positions were reflected throughout the entire general fund budget. So the rest has not changed from the workshop meeting at this point. Since we did not talk about the other funds, we need to publicly discuss them, but luckily for everybody in the audience, this is not going to take that long, but there will need to be a public discussion of the funds. So the first fund you have in the budget is actually the light fund. We did discuss the light fund with the reduction in cost of $1,500 a month. Has now put us in a positive projection. So our light fund expenses, basically, as I'm looking here, you're looking at the expenses, the monthly expenses now $32,200. Extrapolating that out 12 months to $158,400. And the total revenue that we have coming in is $192,418. So when you add that with some of the other expenses, that get you to $162,000, you're now showing excess revenue, where before we were showing a very tight budget. That's what the $1,500 a month savings is reflecting in that budget. That is the biggest, most significant change to that budget. Last year that budget was a concern, this year that budget is not a concern.
And to whom did we change to as our provider?
That was presented 2 meetings ago.
And I remember
can't
talking
remember off the top
about
of my head.
kilowatt hours and the rate and all that, but I thought, I can just see some good editors saying, well, what did they change to?
Well, if you could park that one, we'll give you an answer in a
Okay.
moment. If not, we'll email an answer.
Okay.
If you can remember that.
Yeah.
Next one is the hydrant fund. Hydrant fund, there was a small increase in the hydrant rental, but all in all, we are taking the slightly more revenue than we are putting out in expenses for the hydrant fund. So the hydrant fund is again this year healthy. So we're showing in the end of the year a small excess revenue of about $2,500. Expenses after revenue. So there's not going to need to be any changes to the hydrant fund. The third fund is our park and rec fund. This is our mandatory dedication fund money. So this is not our routine budget money, maintenance money that's in the general fund. The only thing that shows on there, and the answer was progressive for electrical. It was the electrical.
See, the cloud works.
So on the rec fund, the only thing that is shown in the proposed budget is a Stony Point Park project, we have $35,000 that will cover consultant fees through 2019, as well as some seed money for construction. So consultant bill is actually less than $35,000. That is the only thing shown in our rec fund this year. And that is the main focus of both the Park and Rec, as well as the Stony Point Council working group. Next item is the capital reserve. There are going to be some changes to the capital reserve, more on a accounting perspective. The first change is that the Act 209 monies will at some point, once Liz and I have time, get pulled out capital reserve and be put into the loan fund. That is one of the recommended best management practices that came out of the last audit. They will also be put in their proper funding categories, so they will reflect the 3 different zones, the east, west, and south zones that we have for traffic impact fees, interim fee, and used anywhere within the Act 209 program that UGI and a couple others sign up for. So we will have 5 accounts that will be placed into. The second thing that's coming out of capital reserve is Act 209 monies that will go to Denver Road Bridge Principal. We talked about that in the workshop meeting. So those are the items of capital reserve. For the most part, there's no planned projects at this point with capital reserve, other than those monies going out at this point that we talked about. Okay, the last item, this is the one we're going to talk about for a little bit, and that's the state fund. This is our liquid fuel funding account. This is the one, I see Chris is still here, that's good, that Chris and I have been working on very hard at this point, with kind of redoing the philosophy of what this township is looking at with our roadways. As we talked at the beginning of the year, the township was going to refocus its effort from going to our roads on our outskirts that we've been doing oil chip with very well, to focusing more on our residential streets that we have not been doing much in any way of maintenance. So part of that was finally Chris and I getting out and doing condition surveys. And we did a number of condition surveys ahead of going into the budget season here, and then had to pause because the budget season guys all got busy. But what came out of those condition surveys is, and what's reflected in this budget, that for the next 6 years, starting with next year, when we work on our residential streets, we are going to be spending more on our residential streets than what we get for our allotment that year of liquid fuel funds. Now, over the last decade, the township has squirreled away liquid fuel funds by not spending all of them every year. They build up a nest egg of roughly $524,000. After this next year's projects, the liquid fuel highway budget will be down to $400,000. So what we're seeing is, to do what we're going to need to do in the residential streets, we're going to be spending anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 extra dollars a year on monies on our residential streets that we're not getting from liquid fuel funds, just to keep up with the work that we're going to need to do. The point of that is that that will drain this account down in about 3 years, down to year 0, and it'll just reflect at that point money in, money out. Money we get in from the state will, 100% of it will not go back out for that year into the budget. When we get to that point, then I will be looking to the board to start spending our capital reserve money on our residential streets so that we can still stay ahead of our residential streets. The goal is right now to be doing fog seals, to be doing 1-inch overlays on our roadways, to be doing chip seals that we're doing in some places. We're doing a lot of this innovative stuff to avoid having a road get to a point where we got to do mill and overlay, or a deep mill and overlay, or full depth reclamation, all these more expensive options for our streets. It means some of our streets are going to be deferred. If a street's already gotten to the point where it needs to have a full depth reclamation or something like that, and it's still drivable, then our best money is not to reclaim and spend our whole year's budget on the street. Our best money is to keep the rest of the streets from getting to that point. So that is part of us doing this condition survey and prioritizing our roadways. The township has never had a prioritized plan. The township will have a prioritized plan by the end of the year. By end of next year, the township will have a prioritized plan with future budget numbers for the next 10 years. So the goal of this year is just to get our condition surveys done, get our quadrants set up. Goal for 2019 is actually put a price tag behind it, so that we can actually project that stuff out. The goal is to put a 10-year paving plan together next year. That will be one of the Nancy Hess goals that we're talking about, wrapping it back around with everything else that we're talking about doing at this point. That is the items to take. We are doing a lot of creative things in our liquid fuels budget. You're seeing in there a lot of chip sealing. I think we documented that if we can get away with chip sealing in Quail Hollow, we can do chip seal pretty much any other roadway in the township. To date, we have done chip seal, 3 days worth of chip seal in the township this year, because AMS gave us a 3-day order. So we took advantage of that 3-day. And then
Thank you, Chris.
Days worth of chip sealing on AMS's dime. We did that, and of those 3 days of doing chip seal, we have received one official complaint in Old Homestead with all the properties that, with all the streets that we have chip sealed. So we will definitely be doing that chip seal patching in our residential streets going forward to buy time with our streets. So that is in the budget. We are also doing creative things like looking at getting Petrotac. So Petrotac is a hand-placed geotextile. I actually used it on my own driveway before I had here prior to pave it 8 years ago, and it's still holding up just fine. You put it down, you have an X-Acto knife to put it over the linear crack. You'll be utilizing $2,000 of that in Quail Hollow next year. It will be a standing item going forward. Road crew will go out ahead of the paver, put the Petrotac down on a number of the larger linear cracks, and overlay will go over top of it. Petrotac will target the crack from coming through. Other thing we're looking at doing is we have a, I'm going to try and get this, the term right here at this point. AMS poly patch is going to be utilized on our roadways. That is a very viscous liquid binder pavement that has sand in it. So instead of doing the rubberized sealant on some of our large half-inch wide cracks in Rose Hill and a couple of our other developments, we're going to put the poly patch. So when you drive in Rose Hill or a couple of others, you hit that crack and there's actually a bump. The road is literally sunk where the crack is. That poly patch fills both the crack as well as levels it out. It's expensive, but we do the poly patch and then we come back into Rose Hill and fog seal it, and we're done with that development for the next 10 years. So that is one of the things we're going to potentially look at. Now, if I missed, we did talk about fog seal roads. Okay, good. So that is one of the things that we will be looking at. And we have road emergency additional costs. We are going to be doing more full depth patching. We have a skid loader with a mill head proposed in the budget for the general fund budget. We're looking at utilizing that thing. The days of doing throw and go in the township are over at this point. We're going to use a skid loader mill. We're going to mill out the patch properly. We're going to put in a proper patch. And we're doing that for all of our patching going forward at this point. The patches will last longer, and then it makes it more conducive in the future to throwing an overlay, throwing a fog seal, throwing a chip seal, whatever we're looking to do for that overlay, which is going to throw type patching. That will reduce the amount of patching we will do, but that will also increase the cost, but it's a much better product when it's said and done. So that is a philosophical change that both myself and my roadmaster have mutually agreed is going to be our approach going forward at this point. So Chris, I don't know if you have anything else on the liquid fuel highway?
Good.
So that is the liquid fuel. The biggest take is we're going to be spending more money on our residential streets than what we take in the liquid fuel fund. So as I stated before, East Cocalico Township is open for business and we're moving forward. So let me open up the rest of the slide at this point. What we talked about on this strategic side is there's going to need to be a lot of sacrifice, a lot of new ways of doing things, and new ways of looking at things, a lot of change in the township. And what I have before the board is a series of slides, and this is one I'm kind of expecting a lot more board input versus me just doing a lot of talking at this point. But we are going to look at some proposed cost savings, and one of the first things is operating more efficiently. With us reducing staff, that puts pressure on the remaining staff for us to get our daily jobs done. So what that is going to do with the Nancy Hess study is we're going to be looking at prioritizing work, and certain tasks that we've been doing might just simply go away. Other things are going to be automated. So one of the things that we're looking at helping us with the automation process is the Civic Plus website, and utilizing that service to help improve our communication and improve our information out to the public. What I'd like to do is actually take a quick pause here, because the board has made this a priority of mine, that the township upgrade their website. We actually today got a proposal in from Civic Plus. I'd like to present the proposal tonight. You guys have not seen it. Present the proposal tonight so that at our next meeting you guys can take action. It's 90 days from the moment you take action to the moment we have an up and running website. And so because of the time sensitivity of what you have proposed to me and you want to see done, here is the Civics Plus website. So I did give them some criteria that I wanted to see, and I did discuss this with you. I did discuss with you the standard I gave them, and that the feedback is I wanted a website similar to what he sent to us as a starting point, and that's what we made a proposal with. And so that what you can see here is that's what is actually in their numbers when they give the numbers to you. I'm just going to flip through that little introduction, and they kind of give over what they are. I'll read that later. So, but here's some of the web pages that they present. This is the borough list. You can go to see the borough list and their web page. Very user-friendly, very easy to navigate. Has a community calendar so people can click on that to go to specific meetings or agendas very easily. Contact us. One of the neat features that Civic Plus offers its clients, and what the school districts do very well, is an alert system, a very robust alert system. People sign up for it. They will get notices when there's news posted on the website. These websites are much more friendly to post information than what our current website is that we have with Reddit, or whoever it is that we have right now. So it's a lot easier to get information out to the residents. They can receive information via email or via text when they sign up for it, or both, to get alerts. So if there's going to be information we want to put up about snow plowing, while snow plowing is going on, we could put an alert out there, and those that have signed up for it can get an informational update about snow plowing. If the police want to get an alert out, they can get signed up for. They can sign up for police alerts. If we want to get fire alerts out, and the fire department wants us to put information out, we can put these alerts out via this website. So it's a very nice feature for helping us communicate and promptly share information with our residents and businesses. This is Swatera, so you can go see what Swatera has. E-Town. This is one of my favorite things, is the quick hit buttons. This is very cell phone friendly. That's what this is set up for. Our website is horrible right now for trying to do web access on a cell phone. These websites are designed first and foremost for being used on a tablet and on a cell phone. So you see the functions and features. This is exactly what you would see on your cell phone. Your quick hits. Very set up in a very common sense way of looking at how things will work. Here's another one that was set up for Susquehanna Township. You see again, nice meeting calendar, upcoming meetings. You can see here applications and stuff like that that are once again quick hits, very cell phone friendly for how that thing is laid out. More of up front top buttons that most people are accustomed to seeing versus the side buttons that we currently have with our website.